Coffee is one of the easiest foods in the world to fake. Experts believe that a large amount of coffee sold globally is often mixed with lower quality beans, wrongly labelled or quietly downgraded long before it ever reaches supermarket shelves. What's frightening is that many of the brands people trust most have faced rising consumer complaints, sourcing questions, and growing scrutiny over what's really inside the jar. Today we're lifting the lid on the hidden side of Britain's coffee aisle. We're counting down the 15 ultra-processed coffee brands you should avoid at all costs, including ones that may already be part of your morning routine. And after this countdown, I'll show you exactly how to spot real unprocessed coffee in seconds, so you never waste another pound on burnt industrial coffee again. 15. Tesco Gold Instant Coffee. Instant coffee feels like one of the most normal things you can buy. It's cheap, quick, and for millions of people across the UK, it's part of the daily routine. A jar in the cupboard, a spoonful in a mug, hot water, done. And that's exactly why it deserves attention. Because instant coffee isn't simply coffee that's faster, it's one of the most heavily processed forms of coffee on the market. To create it, manufacturers brew large batches of coffee at industrial scale, concentrate it, and then dry it using high heat until it becomes granules or powder. What ends up in your cup is not freshly roasted beans. It's coffee that has been broken down and rebuilt for shelf life and convenience. The biggest issue isn't that Tesco Gold is uniquely harmful. It's that products like this are designed for speed, not quality. During processing, much of the natural aroma and flavour that makes real coffee enjoyable is lost. The taste becomes flatter, harsher, and more bitter, something many consumers regularly mention in reviews. If you look online, complaints about instant coffees often follow the same pattern: a burnt aftertaste, a lack of richness, and a thin flavour that doesn't resemble cafe-style coffee at all. Some people even report that certain instant coffees feel much more acidic or unpleasant on an empty stomach compared to freshly brewed beans. Now, and because instant coffee has to withstand aggressive manufacturing, it is usually made from cheaper commodity-grade beans chosen for cost and consistency rather than freshness or origin quality. For many people, it becomes easy to accept this as what coffee is supposed to taste like. But once you switch to real beans, the difference is immediate. And the next coffee on this list is even more common in British kitchens and takes industrial processing to an even bigger level. 14. Nescafe Original Instant. If there is one coffee product that defines the modern UK kitchen, it might be Nescafe Original. It's been around for decades, it's everywhere from corner shops to Tesco aisles, and for many people it's the default idea of what coffee even is. It feels reliable, familiar, safe. But when you look closer, Nescafe Original represents one of the most industrial forms of coffee sold on a massive scale. Like all instant coffee, it goes through heavy processing. Coffee beans are brewed in bulk, concentrated down, and then spray-dried or freeze-dried into granules. That process creates a product built for long shelf life, not freshness. And while that convenience is appealing, it comes with trade-offs that many consumers notice immediately. A common complaint you'll see in reviews is the taste. Flat, harsh, sometimes overly bitter, with a burnt edge that doesn't resemble freshly brewed coffee. People often describe it as thin or chemical compared to real ground beans. That's not surprising because much of the delicate flavour and aroma compounds in coffee don't survive industrial drying. Another concern is transparency. Unlike specialty coffee, instant brands rarely provide meaningful details about where the beans come from, when they were roasted, or how fresh the coffee actually is. The focus is consistency and scale, not origin or quality. Nescafe is also one of the most heavily marketed coffees in Britain, which can make it easy to assume it must be high quality. But popularity doesn't always equal purity. It often just means convenience has won. For many people, this is the coffee they drink every day without ever questioning what's inside the jar or what has been stripped away during processing. And as we continue, you'll see coffees that aren't just instant, but marketed as smooth and premium, while still relying on the same ultra-processed shortcuts. 13. Kenco Smooth Instant. Kenco Smooth is marketed as a gentler, more refined kind of instant coffee. The word smooth is right there on the label, suggesting something softer, richer, and more cafe-like than the harsher instant blends people often complain about. And that's exactly why so many shoppers trust it. It feels like an upgrade, a more premium choice for people who still want convenience without sacrificing taste. But at the end of the day, Kenco Smooth is still an instant coffee product, which means it goes through the same heavy industrial processing that defines this entire category. To make instant coffee, manufacturers brew coffee in huge quantities, strip it down into a concentrate, and then dry it into granules using intense heat. That process may preserve caffeine, but it destroys much of what makes coffee enjoyable: the aroma, the natural oils, and the subtle flavor compounds that come from freshly roasted beans. If you look at consumer reviews online, many people describe Kenco Smooth as better than some cheaper instants, but still far from real coffee. Common complaints include a slightly burnt aftertaste, a lack of depth, and a watery or flat flavor that doesn't match the premium image. And like most mass-market instant brands, there's very little transparency. You won't find roast dates, specific origins, or details about bean quality. The product is designed for shelf stability and consistency, not freshness or complexity. That's what makes ultra-processed coffee so deceptive. It's not always marketed as low quality. Often it's packaged as comforting, smooth, and trustworthy, even when the coffee itself has been processed to the point where it barely resembles fresh beans. We'll look at another gold standard instant coffee that many people assume is premium, but comes with the same industrial shortcuts. 12. Douwe Egberts Pure Gold Instant. Douwe Egberts Pure Gold is often seen as one of the more premium instant coffees on UK shelves. The name itself sounds high quality, the jar looks upscale, and many people buy it thinking they're choosing something smoother and more refined than the basic supermarket options. It feels like a step up. But despite the branding, Pure Gold is still part of the same ultra-processed instant coffee world. And it comes with the same underlying issues. Instant coffee is not simply roasted beans ground up. It's manufactured through an industrial process where coffee is brewed in bulk, concentrated, and then dried into granules. That drying stage, whether through spray drying or freeze drying, strips away much of the aroma and complexity that makes real coffee taste alive. What you're left with is a product designed for convenience and shelf life, not freshness. And that's something many consumers pick up on. If you scan through reviews, people often describe Douwe Egberts as strong or easy, but also mention a slightly sharp bitterness and a flat taste compared to freshly brewed coffee. Some drinkers say it smells promising in the jar, but tastes disappointing once it hits hot water. That's the instant coffee trap. It can look and smell comforting, but the depth simply isn't there. Another issue is transparency. Like most large-scale instant brands, Douwe Egberts doesn't provide roast, dates, detailed sourcing, or much information about bean quality. You're buying a consistent, factory-made product, not something crafted for flavor. And when coffee becomes a processed commodity rather than a fresh food, the consumer is left trusting marketing instead of real information. Next, we'll move into a brand that looks even more luxurious, one that sells itself as high-end coffee, but is still built on the same ultra-processed foundation. 11. Loire Instant Coffee. Loire is one of those brands that instantly looks expensive. The packaging is sleek, the name sounds luxurious, and everything about it is designed to make you feel like you're buying something high-end, not just another jar of instant coffee. For many shoppers, it feels like a treat coffee, something more sophisticated than the everyday brands. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No matter how premium the branding looks, Loire Instant is still an ultra-processed coffee product. And it comes with the same limitations that all instant coffee carries. To create instant coffee, manufacturers brew coffee at industrial scale, concentrate it down, and then dry it into crystals or powder. That process is efficient, but it strips away much of what makes real coffee taste fresh. the oils, the subtle aroma compounds, and the complexity that comes from properly roasted beans. What you end up with is a product engineered for shelf stability, not flavor authenticity. If you look through consumer feedback online, many people enjoy the convenience and say it's stronger than cheaper instants. But complaints still appear repeatedly. A slightly artificial aftertaste, bitterness that lingers, and a flavor that feels more like coffee essence than the real thing. Some reviewers even note that it doesn't match the luxury image the brand projects. It tastes like instant coffee dressed up in expensive packaging. And that's what makes products like this so deceptive. They're not marketed as processed. They're marketed as indulgent, but the processing is still there and the transparency still isn't. There are no roast dates, no clear origin details, no way for consumers to judge freshness or bean quality. You're paying for the feeling of premium coffee, not necessarily the reality of it, because the next product on this list is trusted by millions of people in the UK every single day, and most have no idea how processed it really is. 10. Costa Instant Coffee. Costa is one of the most recognisable coffee names in the UK. For many people, it represents the quick cafe stop on the high street, a latte on the commute, a cappuccino during a break, something warm and familiar. So when shoppers see Costa Instant Coffee in supermarkets, the assumption is simple: this must taste like the real thing. But instant coffee under a cafe logo is still instant coffee. The moment coffee is turned into granules, it enters the world of ultra-processing. Costa's instant products are manufactured for speed and shelf life, not freshness. Instead of freshly roasted beans ground moments before brewing, instant coffee is brewed in bulk, concentrated, and dried through industrial methods that flatten much of the flavor. That's why many consumers notice a disconnect. Online reviews often describe Costa Instant as convenient, but not remotely close to what you'd get in a Costa shop. People mention bitterness, a slightly burnt edge, and a taste that feels thin compared to real brewed coffee. Some even say it smells promising in the jar, but loses everything once it hits hot water. And that's the core issue. Branding can create expectations that the products can't meet. Instant coffee doesn't carry roast dates. It doesn't tell you what farms or regions the beans came from. It's designed to be consistent and long-lasting, not transparent or fresh. In a way, Costa Instant is more than just a coffee product. It's a perfect example of how powerful branding can turn an industrial product into something people believe is premium. You're not buying cafe coffee. You're buying a processed shortcut wearing a cafe name. Next is another classic instant brand many people assume is more natural because they push coffee processing even further into territory that barely resembles coffee at all. 9. Jacobs Krönung Instant Coffee. Jacobs Krönung is a well-known European coffee brand sold across UK supermarkets. The packaging feels classic, and many shoppers assume it's a smoother, more premium instant coffee. But Jacobs Krönung is still an ultra-processed product. Like all instant coffee, it's made by brewing coffee in bulk, concentrating it, and drying it into granules using high heat. That process is built for convenience and shelf life, but it strips away much of the aroma, oils, and flavor complexity that fresh coffee has. Many consumers notice this in reviews. People often describe Jacobs as strong, but also mention bitterness, a slightly burnt aftertaste, and a flavor that feels flat compared to freshly ground beans. Some even say it smells better in the jar than it tastes in the cup. And as with most mass-market instants, transparency is limited. There's no roast date, no clear origin detail, and no way to judge bean quality. Just a consistent, factory-made product designed to last. Jacobs Krönung shows that even premium-looking instant coffee is still part of the ultra-processed world. We'll move to a coffee that looks more authentic, real roasted beans, but still comes with hidden supermarket problems. 8. Illy ground coffee tin. Illy is one of the most recognisable premium coffee brands sold in UK supermarkets. The sleek tin packaging, the Italian reputation and the higher price all suggest you're buying something far closer to specialty coffee than the usual supermarket blends. It looks like a quality choice, but Illy ground coffee highlights a different kind of problem in the coffee aisle. Coffee that seems authentic but is still built for mass retail shelf life, not freshness. The biggest issue is time. Ground coffee begins to lose flavour almost immediately after roasting, and even faster once it's pre-ground. Supermarket tins like Illy can sit in warehouses and on shelves for weeks or months before you ever open them. Without a clear roast date, you have no real idea how fresh it is. Many consumer reviews reflect this. People often praise the brand name, but others mention the coffee tasting flat, muted, or lacking aroma compared to what they expected from such a premium product. Some describe it as smooth, but not particularly vibrant, a common sign of coffee that has aged too long. There's also the roast profile. Illy is designed to appeal to a broad market, which often means a darker, more uniform roast that sacrifices the unique characteristics of the beans for consistency. So while Illy may look like a step up, it still represents the supermarket coffee trap. A product that feels premium but is packaged and processed for long distribution, not peak freshness. And next we'll move to one of the most processed coffee drinks of all, a bottled product that many people mistake for coffee when it's really closer to dessert. 7. Lavazza Rossa. Lavazza is one of the most recognizable coffee brands in the UK. The Italian name carries prestige, the packaging feels premium, and many shoppers assume they're buying an authentic espresso-style product straight from Italy. It looks like a step above the standard supermarket blends, but Lavazza's mass-market coffees, especially the widely sold Rossa and Espresso ground, come with the same issue that affects many imported supermarket brands. They are built for distribution, not freshness. Coffee is at its best within a few weeks of roasting. After that, the flavors begin to fade quickly as the oils oxidize and the aroma disappears. With imported coffee, the timeline is often much longer. These products can spend months moving through shipping containers, warehouses, and store shelves before they ever reach your cupboard. That's why so many UK consumers describe a Lavazza supermarket blends as flat, stale, or lacking the richness they expected. The branding promises bold Italian espresso, but the taste can feel muted and over-roasted. The second concern is roast style. Lavazza leans heavily into the dark espresso roast tradition, which creates that bitter intensity many people associate with strength. But darker roasting also covers up bean inconsistencies and removes much of the natural complexity that fresher, lighter roasts preserve. So what you often get is a uniform burnt profile. Strong, yes, but not necessarily high quality. At this point in the countdown, if you're realizing how much of the coffee aisle is built on marketing and shelf life rather than freshness, you're not alone. Kindly take a second to like the video and subscribe because the biggest surprises are still ahead, and the most ultra-processed products haven't even appeared yet. And coming up next is a coffee product that many people assume is the same as what they drink in restaurants, but the supermarket version tells a very different story. 6. McCafe packaged coffee. McCafe is a name most people associate with McDonald's cafes. Quick, consistent coffee served fresh in restaurants. For many customers, it feels familiar and dependable, especially if you've had a decent cup from a McDonald's location before. So when shoppers see McCafe coffee sold in supermarkets, the assumption is natural. This must be the same coffee, just in a bag. But packaged McCafe is a very different product. Retail coffee sold under licensed brands is often produced through mass market supply chains designed for shelf life and cost efficiency, not the same sourcing and freshness standards used in store. That means what you brew at home may not resemble what you'd get freshly made in a restaurant. One of the most common complaints in reviews is inconsistency. Some consumers describe it as overly bitter. Others say it tastes stale or flat, and many people specifically mention that it doesn't match the McCafe experience they expected. And that's where the disappointment sets in. The The branding creates trust, but the product is still supermarket coffee, roasted for mass distribution, packaged to last, and often lacking transparency about bean origin or roast timing. Like most big retail coffees, you won't find a clear roast date. You're left with a best before label that tells you almost nothing about freshness. And because ground coffee loses flavor faster than whole beans, any time spent sitting in warehouses or on shelves hits even harder. Some consumers also report that packaged McCafe can feel harsher on the stomach than fresher coffees, which is a common issue people raise with heavily roasted, pre-ground supermarket blends. McCafe packaged coffee is a perfect reminder that a trusted name doesn't guarantee a high-quality product inside the bag. We'll look at another high street favourite, one that millions of Britons love in-store, but that changes completely once it's turned into a supermarket product. 5. Carte Noire instant coffee. Carte Noire is often seen as one of the more premium instant coffees in UK supermarkets. The branding looks elegant, the name sounds upscale, and many shoppers assume it must be smoother and higher quality than basic instant blends. But Carte Noire is still an ultra-processed instant coffee. Like other instant products, it's made through industrial processing. Coffee is brewed in bulk, concentrated, and dried into granules designed to dissolve instantly. That convenience comes at a cost. Much of the aroma, freshness, and natural flavour is lost along the way. If you read consumer reviews, people often describe Carte Noire as strong, but complaints still show up repeatedly. Bitterness, a slightly burnt aftertaste, and a flavour that feels flat compared to real ground coffee. Some even say it smells better in the jar than it tastes in the cup. And as with most mass-market instant brands, there's little transparency. No roast date, no clear origin, and no way to judge bean quality. It's built for shelf life and consistency, not purity. Carte Noire proves that ultra-processing doesn't always look cheap. Sometimes it looks premium, but underneath it's still an industrial shortcut. And next is what happens when coffee is stripped down purely for price, turning coffee into a sweetened cafe-style powder. 4. Asda Just Essentials Instant Coffee. Asda's Just Essentials coffee is one of the cheapest coffee products on UK shelves, and that low price tells you exactly what the priority is. Cost first, quality last. Budget instant coffee is almost always produced from the lowest cost commodity beans available, processed aggressively into shelf-stable granules with no transparency about origin, roast timing, or freshness. Consumer reviews of ultra-budget instants often mention the same problems: harsh bitterness, burnt flavours, and a thin, watery cup that feels more like caffeine delivery than real coffee. This isn't coffee designed to taste good, it's coffee designed to be cheap, consistent, and long-lasting. And when a product is built entirely around shelf life and price, the actual bean quality becomes the last concern. 3. Bellarom Instant Coffee. Bellarom Instant Coffee is one of those products many UK shoppers know without even thinking about it. You walk into Lidl, you see the jar, the price is low, and it feels like a simple, everyday option. Quick caffeine, no fuss. And that's exactly why it belongs in this countdown. Because like most supermarket instant coffees, Bellarom is not fresh coffee made easier. It's one of the most industrial, ultra-processed forms of coffee you can buy. Instant coffee isn't produced the way people imagine. The beans are brewed in huge factory batches, the liquid is concentrated, and then it's dried into granules using high heat, so it can dissolve instantly and sit on shelves for months. That process is designed for convenience and shelf life, not flavor, freshness, or transparency. And many consumers notice the difference. If you look through online reviews of budget instant coffees, the same comments appear again and again. The taste can feel flat, slightly harsh, or lacking the rich aroma people associate with real coffee made from freshly ground beans. Some drinkers describe it as basic or generic, which makes sense because instant coffee is built for consistency, not quality complexity. Another issue is what you don't get. No roast date, no clear origin information, and no way to know how fresh the beans were before they were processed. With products like this, coffee becomes less of a fresh food and more of a long-life commodity. And that's the bigger point. You're no longer drinking coffee, you're drinking additives wrapped in a coffee label. And next, we return to one of the most misleading supermarket coffee drinks of all. Bottled, sweetened and consumed by millions across the UK every year. 2. Starbucks Frappuccino coffee drink. This is one of the most misleading coffee products sold in UK supermarkets. The Starbucks Frappuccino coffee drink looks like a simple grab-and-go caffeine boost. Something you pick up from Tesco or a corner shop without a second thought. But it's not really coffee in the traditional sense. These bottled drinks are some of the most ultra-processed coffee products on the market. Coffee is only a small part of the formula. The rest is usually added sugar, flavorings, stabilizers, emulsifiers, and milk-based additives designed to make it thick, sweet, and shelf-stable. That's why so many people say it tastes more like a milkshake than a coffee. Online reviews often mention how overly sweet it is, how artificial the flavor can feel, and how it leaves an aftertaste that real brewed coffee never would. Many consumers are surprised when they realize how much sugar is packed into a single bottle, despite the coffee branding. What makes it especially deceptive is the Starbucks name. People associate Starbucks with cafe coffee, but bottled frappuccinos are a completely different product, a processed dessert drink built for supermarkets, not freshness. It's coffee turned into a sugary packaged beverage. And now we're about to reach the number one item, the most extreme example of ultra-processed coffee hiding in plain sight. 1. Tassimo coffee pods. At the top of the list is one of the most common and most industrial ways people drink coffee in the UK today: Tassimo coffee pods. Tassimo machines are everywhere. They're convenient, fast, and marketed as a way to get barista-style drinks at home with the press of a button. But pod coffee is one of the most ultra-processed forms of coffee you can buy. The coffee inside these capsules is pre-ground, sealed long before it reaches your kitchen, and designed to sit for months without the consumer ever knowing when it was roasted. There's no freshness, no roast date, and no real transparency about bean quality. And because the system is built for consistency, the coffee is often roasted and processed in a way that produces the same flavor every time, even if that means sacrificing complexity and freshness. Many consumers also complain that pod coffees taste weak, overly bitter, or artificial compared to freshly ground beans. Some describe a stale flavor that's hard to ignore once you notice it. The biggest issue is that pods turn coffee into a factory-controlled product. You're no longer buying beans, you're buying a sealed industrial portion designed for convenience above all else. Tassimo isn't just coffee, it's coffee engineered for machines, shelf life and mass production. And if you want real coffee, fresh, simple and unprocessed, this is one of the clearest things to step away from. Now that we've exposed the most ultra-processed coffee brands and products on UK shelves, the final step is learning how to spot the good stuff. The last one, how to spot real coffee in the UK. Now that we've counted down the most ultra-processed coffee products hiding on UK shelves, the big question is simple: what should you buy instead? Because real coffee isn't supposed to taste burnt, bitter or artificial. And the good news is, you don't need to be an expert to spot the difference. You just need to know what to look for. First, check for real transparency. Quality coffee brands tell you where the beans come from, not vague phrases like rich blend or premium roast, but actual origin details: the country, the region, sometimes even the farm. Second, look for a roast date, not just a best before date. Coffee is freshest within a few weeks of roasting. If there's no roast date at all, it's usually been sitting around far longer than you realize. Third, choose whole beans whenever possible. Pre-ground coffee goes stale quickly and hides quality problems. Whole beans stay fresher, taste better, and are much harder to fake. Fourth, be careful with instant sachets flavored mixes and bottled coffee drinks. The more ingredients beyond coffee, the more processed the product becomes, and the further it gets from real coffee. And finally, trust your senses. Real coffee should smell rich and natural, not musty or overly chemical. It should taste clean, not burnt or harsh. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Because at the end of the day, coffee should be something that energizes you, not something ultra-processed that you drink out of habit. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe for more investigations into what's really hiding in everyday supermarket products, and leave a comment telling me what coffee you're currently drinking, and whether you'll be switching after watching this. And most importantly, share this with someone who starts their morning with a jar or sachet, because once you know the difference, you can't unsee it.